This is They Reminisce Over You. I'm Miguel.
And I'm Christina. We wanted to take a minute to make a small request of all our listeners. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Goodpods, or Podchaser, leave us a 5-star rating. You can also leave a review as well on Apple, Goodpods, and Podchaser. Ratings and reviews will help us with discoverability, and we want to get this out to as many like-minded folks as we can.
We want to get on the first page of these podcast apps.
And to move up on the charts as well. So help us get the word out.
Make sure to follow and interact with us on social media. We're at Troy Podcast on the gram and the bird. Also, check out our website, troypodcast.com. It's where we post links to a lot of the things that we mentioned in the show, as well as transcripts and themed playlists that supplement our episodes and more.
Thank you again for your support. You ready to get into the show?
Let's do it.
And we are back. This is They Reminisce Over You. I'm Christina.
And I'm Miguel. A couple weeks ago, we did an episode dedicated to the first 50 years of hip hop. There was a lot to go over and a lot to cover, so we had to break it up into 2 episodes.
And we still won't be able to cover everything, but we're just trying to do our best.
We're only going to get about 8% of it. But we are back on this episode to pick up where we left off. We finished up the golden era, and on this episode, we're going to start with what is known as the Bling Bling Era through current day hip hop. So are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay. So for this episode, we're going to start in the year of 1997.
The year was 1997.
All right.
That's all I got. I didn't have any follow-ups. I will say, though, as you mentioned, this is the mainstream explosion, what people often call the bling bling era, which has also made the expression bling bling very annoying.
Well, you can't do anything about that now. It is what it is.
That's what happens when things go mainstream.
Yes. So at this point, you have hip hop people who are now becoming entrepreneurs. Rappers are now pop stars, and money is just going through the roof at this point.
Yes.
New York is no longer the center of hip hop. It's expanded globally, so everybody has something to say at this point. Hip hop stars are basically what rock stars were in the 70s and 80s. They are the biggest thing going and have continued down that same path ever since, even through to today.
This is when excess becomes a thing.
Yes. This is when
I mean, it always was, but now they have some real money to back it up.
Yeah, before this, you had a little bit of money.
You had some gold chains, but you're still living with your grandma.
Yeah, it was a lot of projection, like from the 70s, 80s, early 90s. Now you got real money.
Right.
Like, you're not leasing these cars now. You can buy one of them and lease the other ones.
Right.
And all of your jewelry is not fake, only half of it.
Them chains ain't hollow.
Yeah, they got a little more weight on them now.
Yeah.
So you have, like, after the passing of Tupac and Biggie, a new crop of stars are starting to blow up.
Right. And everyone's kind of clamoring for the throne.
Yeah. So you have the Jay-Z's of the world. You got Diddy and everybody associated with Bad Boys still around. You've got people like Eminem coming up. Dr. Dre is still around. Ice Cube is still around. Ja Rule and Murder Inc. are starting to make moves as well. So there's a lot of people that are vying for the hip hop throne, so to speak.
I knew that we had really hit this mainstream explosion because I remember just hearing Hypnotize being played out at like every car in Abbotsford. And, you know, I was listening to it. My friends were listening to rap and stuff, but it wasn't like everybody.
Right.
And I was just like, man, I'm hearing this song everywhere and it's not coming from my car. And I remember one of my old classmates who used to make fun of me, you know, they always say, oh, you listen to that rap crap, which is hilarious that they thought that was clever, calling rap crap because it rhymes. But like the whole point of rap is to write clever rhymes. And this is the best y'all can come up with to say that this ain't real music. But yet you can't come up with a better rhyme than that.
At all.
But anyway, the same kid who was harassing me for listening to that rap crap came into HMV where I was working at the time and shuffled over to the cashier and gave me that No Way Out Puff Daddy and the Family CD. And I'm like, oh, look who's buying this rap crap now. Oh, now you decide to get on board. I see. And I remember looking at him like, mm-hmm. And he just kind of like head down and gave it to me.
Was he wearing a do-rag?
He wasn't.
Because that would have just made it even more spectacular.
Who knows? Maybe he put one on, after listening to it a couple times. But I was just like, I remember what you said about my musical interests. And now look at you.
Well, I'm not surprised at that at all. Because like I said, this is when everything really started to blow up. Like MTV's playing it. You have multiple rappers who have gone on to become actors on television and in movies. Mm-hmm. Records are being sold by the ass load at this point. And it seems like everybody's getting a record deal. Mm-hmm. If you were affiliated with anybody at a certain point in time, your entire crew was getting put on. So money was just flowing freely. Right. You got rappers making $1 million videos. $2 million videos. The budgets for everything were just outrageous.
Yes.
And a lot of people took advantage.
And now people are getting record deals that probably shouldn't have got record deals.
Like?
Well, your favorite, Silk the Shocker.
Oh. Yeah. But you know what? I'll let that kind of nepotism slide.
Yeah. He was part of a group. It wasn't some random record company that didn't know any better.
Yeah. Now, see, I would have a problem
trying to put his people on.
Yeah, I would have an issue if it was a crew of people that weren't related and you just had one horrible rapper and you put him on anyway. I would have a problem with that. Okay. But this is his brother. I'm going to get my brother some checks too. So I'll let that slide.
Even if you can't stand him.
I never liked Silk the Shocker. He ruined a lot of classic hip hop songs, rapping off beat.
Actually, I'm going to change what I said.
Okay.
There were more opportunities for people to put their people on. Let's put it that way. Even if maybe some of them didn't need to.
Yeah.
But there was that opportunity. They didn't necessarily have to go begging for deals from people who don't understand what's going on. Like, don't understand the culture or the music.
Because everybody had their own record label at this point. So they were able to put on a lot more people. And instead of going to the labels for deals, they were just using the labels for distribution at this point.
Right.
So you had Bad Boy. Death Row was barely hanging on after the death of Tupac, but they were still around.
No Limit.
No Limit.
The aforementioned
Yes.
No Limit Soldiers.
No Limit, which led to Cash Money a couple years later. Everybody had like a little clique. Dre was starting over with Aftermath with Eminem and 50 Cent. So there were all of these record labels that were generating a lot of money for a lot of people. The ice was flowing. The champagne was flowing.
Yeah.
Rappers were selling shoes. 50 Cent had his sports bras that he was selling.
Sports bras for men.
Sports bras for men.
I hated those so much, even back then.
Those tank tops were terrible.
That cut is so weird.
But he had a sneaker deal with Reebok.
Wait. I got to say one thing about those 50 Cent tank tops. You know what I have to do? Well, the listeners won't be seeing, but remember Little Bow Wow? Let me hold you.
Oh, God.
Wearing that damn tank top. And being clowned years later by his own daughter.
Oh, God.
Let me hold you.
Yeah, I'll let you have that moment. That's all you. I forgot where I was going now.
50 had a shoe deal.
Yes, 50 had a sneaker deal with Reebok. Jay-Z had a sneaker deal with Reebok.
What about all the Rockaware and all that stuff?
Birdman had a deal with Lugs. Oh. Birdman and Funkmaster Flex were selling Lugs.
I remember those damn Lugs.
Yes, Rockaware was selling clothing. Diddy was selling clothing with Sean John.
Baby Fat and Fat Farm.
Yeah, Russell Simmons had all the fat stuff going. Yes. So money was being made in all sorts of ways within hip hop, other than just getting on the mic and doing some rhymes.
Don't forget about them apple bottom jeans.
With the boots with the fur. Yes, Nelly was selling apple bottom jeans. Everybody had their their hands in something outside of just the music.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of the money was coming from. I'm not going to lie. I had an Outcast clothing t-shirt. Actually, I had a couple of them now that I think about it.
I had a black velour Echo catsuit. I think it was Echo, or was it Baby Fat? No, I think it was Echo, and I loved it.
I believe you. Because I had a bunch of Fat Farm. I had the Echo. I had Nietzsche. I had Rockaware.
I actually didn't have a lot of the hip hop clothing line stuff, but that's because I didn't have any money.
See, this was when I first started working.
Yeah.
And I had my first credit card too, so that was a deadly combination. So I had all the oversized t-shirts and size 44 jeans that were twice as big as they should have been on me.
Oh man, I was working at Foot Locker in I think 98 or something. Anyways, and that was when FUBU was getting really popular. And I think that was the first time I saw like oversized clothing. I'm like, these t-shirts are huge. Like, you no longer had to buy double XLs to make them bigger. Like, you probably want to wear a medium.
Yeah, because even the mediums fit like double XLs.
Right. I'm like, these t-shirts are huge.
Yeah. And with all of that said, everything still comes back to the music, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm just going through the list of things that came out in 1999. So you had the Slim Shady LP. You had Things Fall Apart by The Roots. So you have the I Am album by Nas. Who else is there? Rough Riders, Ride or Die Volume 1. 1999, Nature's Fury, No Limit Top Dog. Sound Bombing 2 on Raucous Records. So there was a lot of hits that were still being made at this time.
Despite it being a lot more mainstream, there's still good music. And not everything was quote unquote bling bling.
Yeah.
You still had some variety.
Yeah, there was a lot of variety still, but the big names were just knocking it out of the park.
And don't forget a scrappy young rapper with How to Rob.
Oh,
trying to make himself known.
Yes, young Curtis Jackson.
I was looking, I don't know how that song just popped into my radar. Oh, I was just listening to a playlist of Trackmaster produced songs on Tidal.
Okay.
And this was on the list. So I was just listening to it again because I haven't heard it in like a million years. And it's just hilarious how he's like, I'm going to get it. Everybody. So, well, Wikipedia actually lists every single person that he called out. I could read the entire list. It might take a second.
That's up to you.
All right. Kim Porter and Diddy, Bobby Brown, Whitney Houston, Brian McKnight, Keith Sweat, Harlem World, Mace, ODB, Foxy Brown, Corrupt, Jay-Z, Case, Trackmaster, Slick Rick, Stevie J, Big Pun, Master P, Silk the Shocker, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, Timbaland and Missy, Joe, Jermaine Dupri and the Brat, DMX, Tretch, DJ Clue. I don't know who TQ is, but the line that he says to TQ is something along the lines like, I would rob you, but your single didn't do very well. So I guess I'm not the only one who doesn't remember who that is.
I know TQ.
Okay. Raekwon, Ghostface, RZA, Sticky Fingers, Fredro, Cannabis, Heavy D, Juvenile, Blackstreet, Boyz II Men and Michael Bivins, Mike Tyson and Robin Givens, Mr. C, Busta Rhymes, and Flip Mode Squad, and even Kirk Franklin.
And see, that wasn't even enough to get him dropped. That's what got him the record deal.
Exactly.
That's crazy. That's what got him the deal. But doing Ghetto Quran and getting shot is what got him dropped.
Right.
They're like, you know what? You might be a little too hot for us. So,
well, I guess because the song, even though some people did their little response records to it, it was more funny.
Yeah.
But getting shot wasn't funny.
Yeah. I don't even remember who responded to it other than Jay-Z.
Let's see.
That's the only one I remember is I'm about $1. Who the fuck is 50?
Ghostface.
What the fuck is 50
cents? Ghostface said something. Corrupt. Missy Elliott made a note in her liner notes. She said, I don't know you that well, except when you told me to put them hot dogs down.
Okay.
I got on the treadmill for you, baby. Thanks for the remix. Love ya.
Yeah,
Wyclef Jean.
I don't know any of the responses.
Yeah, I only remembered Jay-Z with the what the fuck is 50 cents.
Yeah. That's the only one that mattered.
So there were still a couple scrappy rappers. They weren't all swimming in champagne just yet.
Yeah. There were still a couple brokies out there trying to get to that level.
Yeah.
And the irony of him being that big now
right,
is just funny to me. Like now you're one of the targets.
Mhm.
There's probably somebody that wants to come after you right now, but they don't even know that you used to rap. They just think you're the guy on TV that's producing TV shows.
Yeah. Power? Is that 50 show? I forgot now.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Power series of 80 different shows and a couple movies that he's produced and acted in. So he's an actor now. He's doing his final lap tour right now.
Yes.
He was just here last week.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a couple clips from the show. So what were you listening to in 97, 98, 99?
Pretty much all the stuff that you just listed. Nas, Jay-Z. I'm drawing a blank now.
Okay.
Let me look up my list. Let's look at 1997. Camp Lo. Uptown Saturday Night came out in 1997. That's a good one. The Loonies. Oh, not just Loonies. Life After Death came out. Wu-Tang. Capone and Noriega.
Of course you were.
Beat Nuts. Lady of Rage. Missy Elliott. Bone Thugs. Oh, I don't think I was listening to this album that much. The Art of War. What songs are on these? Yeah, I wasn't really listening to this album that much.
Okay.
I was listening to Killer Army.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I was going through like this Wu-Tang and affiliates deep dive.
See, here's the thing. I would listen to like the main artist. I can't go 5 levels deep like that. Like maybe if you had one offshoot, I might listen to that one, but I'm not listening to the Dove Shack just because I like Snoop Dogg.
It was a time.
I can't do that.
Oh, Common, One Day It'll All Make Sense, also came out in 97. Mystical, even though we can't listen to him anymore either, right?
Mystical's trouble. And the thing is, even if he wasn't out here diddling people
over and over again,
and
that's putting it lightly,
I probably wouldn't listen to much of it anyway.
Yeah. Just
because it's really dated. There's a lot of stuff from this era that I don't go back and listen to.
We're gonna talk about this more in a future episode, but all I'm gonna say is 1997 had a very specific sound, I think.
Yeah, it did. And like I said, a lot of that stuff just doesn't work for me anymore. It was good for that time and maybe 5 years after, but almost 20 years later, actually more than 20 years later, I can't get into it like I used to.
There's stuff that I still listen to, but it's like nostalgia music.
Yeah. And these are people that I like, but I ain't throwing on LL Cool J's Phenomenon album today.
Yeah.
So I can't do that.
I think the main ones are sort of the titans that are still out here today, like Jay-Z, Outkast, Nas, Wu-Tang, those kinds of artists.
Right. Not putting on that Mac 10 based on a true story.
That's you.
Nah, I'm not listening to that either. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff from that era that's just really dated and does not work for me.
Listening to DOS Effects?
Definitely not.
What about Fat Pat?
What song are we talking about?
Okay, so this is from 98.
It depends on the song. Like if we're talking about, what's his name, DJ DMD, 25 Lighters with Fat Pat Lil Kiki.
Well, that one, yes.
So I'll play that.
That one can stay.
Yeah, but some album cuts from Fat Pat, probably not. Probably not. But 25 Lighters, I'm playing that.
Big Pun. Some Big Pun songs that can still
a couple of them.
DMX. This is Dark and Hell is Hot. Well, this is 98 now. I'm looking at 98 now.
Same thing. A lot of songs I just can't listen to sonically anymore. It doesn't sound good to me anymore.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm seeing here is the stuff that we were listening to in the mid to late 90s is stuff we're still listening to today.
Yes. Not all of it.
Not all of it, but there are people who dominated or came out then are the people that we still listen to today most often.
Yes. Even if they're not making current music today.
Right.
Even though Redman just had something come out 2 days ago. I'll listen to that because it's Redman.
And you love Redman.
I do. I think Redman's great.
I am not listening to Ja Rule. I can't do it. I could never shake, I'm sure people have opinions about this, but I think I could never shake the DMX 2.0 feel to him.
Yeah, I could see that. But he made better songs in terms of songs that are more pleasant to listen to.
Yes.
Rather than...
I'll take DMX over Ja Rule any day, though.
The danger and despair of
I'm slipping, falling,
Yeah.
can't get up. He had some, y'all gonna make me lose my mind. He has some upbeat.
Yeah, but even that song is aggressive.
It is.
Like, it sounds like it's a
How
party
it's going
record,
down?
and it's called Party Up, but it's still some horrible shit happening.
You were dancing to Nelly talking about drive-bys.
See, that's different, though. That's an old nursery rhyme that he's singing.
All right. I think we're getting off topic.
We're way off topic.
All right. Let me stop looking at this list. So back to this Bling Bling era.
Yes.
So as we were saying, there was a lot of excess, a lot of money flowing, but there was still room for music. Now, we're talking about 97 to like 2006.
Yep.
So I think for me, this is kind of where I was slowly losing interest in newer music. I didn't realize it at the time. And I think this makes sense because of the next era that we're going to go into. So from 2006 on can be known as the blog era.
Okay.
The internet. And we've said this in previous episodes before. When the internet became more like commonly used, a couple things changed is technology lowered the barrier of entry.
Yeah.
So it was easier for people to put music out. And then it was also easier for us to consume only the things we wanted to.
Yeah.
So whereas before we had to take a chance on buying a whole album, even if we only heard one or two singles.
Yeah, and at this time, a lot of the TV shows were no longer on the air, like Rap City and Yo MTV Raps were gone and fading out at this time, and it's more TRL, 106 and Park driven. Even though those two networks were owned by the same people, everything was kind of being conglomerate, or that's not a word, conglomeratized. But a lot of companies were merging and coming together.
A monopoly.
Yeah, they were being monopolized by a handful of companies. So everything that was being played on the radio coast to coast was starting to sound the same because a lot of these stations in these cities were owned by the same company. Like Power 106 is playing the same playlist as Hot 97, which shouldn't have been happening. LA and New York shouldn't be playing the same music at the same time. So it was a lot of that we were being force fed all the same stuff without like local acts being put into the mix either.
And I think also the availability of it. So before, if you wanted something, you had to like save money to go buy it, or you had to like go find it. And so you really had to like something to make that effort. Whereas when you can just download something on Napster, or, I mean, as streaming started to come into play and stuff, you just be like, that song's okay. Sure, I'll download it. Like, it's just so easy to listen to stuff. And now you're sort of just like, your interest is more passive.
Well, for me, during this time, I wasn't going out of my way to listen to new stuff either. I was just listening to new stuff by the people that I already liked.
Right.
So me listening to a newer artist was very rare at this time.
Yeah.
I might listen to a Rick Ross because I liked what he was doing, but I'm not going to listen to Obi Trice, for instance. Like, he's affiliated with people that I listen to, but I'm not going to waste my time trying to get into Obi Trice after I've given it more than like 2 or 3 songs and it didn't work for me.
I think during this time, the only artist that I would add to like my roster of favorites is Kendrick Lamar. There are other artists that, I'll like some songs or whatever, but I don't have any personal connections, or like I don't feel anything. It's just something catchy. And it's funny to say that the only new artist I like is Kendrick, because he's been in the game for like over 10 years now.
Right.
We've talked about newer rappers that we like, but they sound like artists that I already like.
Right. Yeah, I can't think of anybody outside of like a Kendrick Lamar or J. Cole or even Lupe Fiasco, Jay Electronica. Just a handful of people that have come out since like 2005, 2006 that I consistently listen to whenever they release something. It's a small handful.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that I should like, but I just can't get into them for whatever reason, and probably never will because we're like 10 years in now and I can't
You can't
Yeah.
just jump on the Drake bandwagon now.
Yeah, I've tried to get into Drake, but it just doesn't work for me. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that Drake sucks or Drake is whack. It just doesn't do anything for me.
I mean, you know, him being from Toronto and all, so obviously it was like, oh, who's this hometown hero on the rise? So I remember when the buzz started coming out around him, and I had a friend who was trying to put me on to Drake, and I was just like, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. There is one album of his that I actually listened to more than once, but I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just my age, because I think definitely your age does make a difference in discovering new interests in general, and that includes music. Now I'm the one who's like, oh, you kids and your music. Even though it's the same genre, I think it's enough time has passed that it's the next generation's time.
It is, but I can't concede that fact because the stuff that I'm starting to get into now, like I'm talking in the past 2 or 3 years, I really do like, and most of them are women. There are a few like male artists that I do mess with of this newer crop, and I guess we're moving on to like the current day of rapper.
Actually, let's not move on yet because we barely even talked about like how the blogs change things, or like why is technology a good and bad thing.
Yeah.
So
okay.
let's go back a little bit.
All right. I will let you take that.
So do you think it's just because with all these blogs and now the people are driving, I guess, like what's popular, and having more access to actually releasing music means having more variety? Why is having more variety a bad thing? Like, isn't that what we liked about hip hop when it started to expand out of New York? What is it about technology that kind of changed that?
There's too much of it. When we were getting 30 to 50 albums a year, there was more that we could actually sit and listen to. But if you're getting 50 albums a week being released, there's too much.
Yeah.
Like you can't listen to everything.
Do you think that kind of dilutes it? Because even if there's more albums being made, shouldn't the quote unquote good ones rise to the top?
They should, but because there's too many to weed through, you probably won't even find that good album. That's been the biggest issue since like the late 90s moving into the mid 2000s with like Napster and LimeWire and all this stuff, when people were able to just pick a song from here and there, which then leads to blogs curating things. Now technology has allowed anybody being able to make music from wherever they are. Like if you have a smartphone, you can make an album today. And that just gives us too many options to choose from. And most of it that we do get to hear is shit. Well, okay, I shouldn't say most of it that we hear is shit. Most of it that I hear is shit. And that makes me not want to look further.
Right.
If that makes any sense. Because like, I don't know where to look.
And there's too much to weed through.
And there's too much to weed through. So it has to be something that's really good that comes off of a recommendation of somebody I trust.
Yeah. I think as with any new technology, when it gets introduced, it starts off as a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I think lowering that barrier of entry is actually a good thing
for
people who don't live in New York, or you don't have a friend who knows somebody who you could get a demo tape into their hands.
Right.
So in that sense, it's good. And I think at the beginning, that opened doors for people who might not have had that chance.
Yeah, it levels the playing field.
Yeah.
And you don't have to fight through 300 other people to try and get your demo to an A&R.
And you also have the opportunity to own more of your stuff too, if you can just release stuff or do stuff as independently as possible. We won't get into it too much since we can only say so much in one episode, but listening to the Blog Era podcast by, why did I just forget their names?
It's The Real.
It's The Real. I definitely recommend listening to that to understand this whole advancement in technology and how it started as a good thing of like, oh, now the people have a say in what we want. And then how it turned into something else.
Yeah, see, I was good with it then. because, as you said, it gave people an opportunity to have their music heard in a lot of cases that they probably wouldn't have been able to.
Right.
Like they could go directly to somebody who had a blog and say, hey, can you post this?
Mm-hmm.
The downside of that is anybody can go to someone on a blog and say, hey, can you post this? Or if they don't post it, they just put it up on their SoundCloud or whatever, or put it on YouTube, and it may not be good.
Right.
Like I think there needs to be some sort of balance, even though we can't put that genie back in the bottle of there being some sort of gatekeepers. Like I don't think everybody.
Even the A&Rs, people who are supposed to be A&Rs are like on Twitter, like, hey, y'all, who are you listening to? And it's like, that's your job.
Like that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But we can't take that back anymore. And I don't want to take away people's opportunities to be whatever they want to be and make the money they want to make. But there has to be a better way for the excellent rappers and performers to be pushed, and we don't have to search as hard to find them.
Yeah, I think the blog era was twofold, like we just said. It definitely helped some people, but it ushered us into what hip hop and rap music is like today. So there's two things that I think I'm seeing today is sort of the runoff of technically anybody can do it now. So on one hand, a lot of it feels like a popularity contest, where if you're just a person that's really good with social media or like getting people to follow you and stuff, that you can just make whatever music and people will just like it because they like you. It's like the cult of personality rather than people not knowing anything about you, but they just love the music. Now it's like get popular first and then release music.
Right.
And also, again, we've said this many times before, the loss of regionality, because everyone is like, the internet is the world now.
Yeah.
So aside from maybe like your hometown accent, a lot of the music, in my opinion, sounds the same. But as you were saying, there's a lot of like, I'm not sure why this happened or how this happened, but a lot of the rappers running the game now are women. So that's a good thing.
It is. This is probably the best time in hip hop history for women because there's a lot of them that are on the charts and making a lot of music that's actually selling. Whereas before it would only be 2, 3, maybe 4 at a time. Now the majority of the rap acts that are doing well are women.
Right. So I'm not really sure. Hey, why not? I guess maybe we don't.
I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to take it. It's something that's been a long time coming.
Yep.
And I'm okay with it.
I don't want to regurgitate too much of what we talked about in our previous episode about new hip hop. What was the episode called? We'll link to it.
New hip hop for old niggas or something like that.
New hip hop for old heads.
Yes.
I think something like that.
Yeah, that's it. I knew it was something like that. I wanted to name it that, but I decided not to.
But basically, we had talked about like a lot of the newer male rappers being like Lil Wayne's children.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe because, at least for me, a lot of the male rappers are doing like that sing-songy rap. And I wasn't really a huge fan of Lil Wayne. I'm not going to be a fan of his offshoots.
Yeah.
Whereas I find that the women are trying to be like rappity rap, like the rap we grew up listening to. And that's probably why I personally like the women rappers more, because they're like rapping.
Yeah.
Instead of just like auto-tune singing. But also because we're old now, people in our age range are having children who are late teens, early 20s. As much as there's older rappers now, the ones who have been around since the early wave still making music, it's still a young person's game. So you got this new crop of young rappers whose parents are basically us.
Yeah.
So now the music they're making, while it's new music, it sounds more along the lines of stuff we grew up listening to.
Right.
Because their parents are us, and they grew up listening to what their parents listening to. And now they're getting those influences. So this new crop might be going back a little bit.
Yeah. And like I mentioned in the last episode, everything in hip hop tends to be on a 5 to 10 year cycle. And we're coming up on like 10 years of blogs being gone. And it's kind of cycling around back to where we started from.
Right.
At least on the side with the women. And there's still a few dudes that are out there doing the rap without the auto-tune and the melodic rapping along with the singing and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's starting to come back around to that. So I'd say in the next 5 years or so, we're probably going to end up back where we started.
Mm-hmm.
The production's going to be different because you can't really sample like you did in the 80s and 90s. The laws have shut that shit down and people don't want to pay for samples really in this day and age. Although there is a lot of sampling, the sampling that's happening now, they're sampling like the rappers that we were listening to.
Right. Or like the R&B, like they're sampling SWV now.
Yeah. So they're not sampling the original artist. They're sampling the sample.
Right.
Which is funny. I saw an interview with Prince saying that 20 years ago, it's like at some point we're going to start sampling the samples, and that's where we are. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
you're just saying the production will be different.
Yeah, I think the production will be different.
Yeah.
So that it won't be as DJ Premier, Pete Rock, Dr. Dre, RZA type beats. Mm-hmm. But I think the rap will be that way. Like the lyrics are going back in that direction.
For a while, I was just like, maybe I'm just too old for this shit. But rap and hip hop has always been seen as like a young person's genre. But since it's young enough that the pioneers are still here, now we get to see it as music for people of different ages.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, you know what? I'm not too old to listen to this.
Not
it's
at
just,
all.
There's definitely some that is not for me and is for young people. But back then, I didn't think I'd be like, 40 something still listening to rap music. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it seemed like young people's music.
Yeah.
One of the documentaries we watched, Nelly said something like, pretty soon rappers are going to be 50 years old. Yeah. And that's pretty much him now. Like, I don't know exactly how old he is.
Late 40s. I don't think he's 50 yet, but he's creeping up on it. He's in the neighborhood.
Nas is over 50. Jay-Z's over 50. And can't forget the game going, you're 38 and you still rapping. Ugh. Now look at him.
He's 15 years past that point.
Exactly. And so it's interesting to see hip hop getting old and still staying young at the same time.
Yeah, it's 50 years old. Yep. And this is the first time we've had the opportunity to see rappers get old.
Yeah.
And still be able to perform. Like when rappers got old in the 90s, you just never heard from them again until Nas would do a Where Are They Now type record. But Nas at 50 or 51 or whatever he is still putting albums out. Nas has put out like 6 albums in the past 3 weeks. All right, not that many, but he's had 2 albums a year for at least 3 years now. Jay-Z has put out an album a couple years ago, post 50.
Right.
You have other rappers in their late 40s who are just as good now as they were 20 years ago and still being able to go out on tour and perform at a high level. Mm-hmm. Like we're going to see Wu-Tang and Nas and De La Soul in a couple months.
Right.
And LL Cool J next week. So these are people who are grandfathers.
Literally.
Yeah. And they're still performing at a high level.
And then the music is still as relevant and popular as ever that you still have these 20-somethings making new music.
Yeah. So it's not going anywhere.
So not bad for a fad.
Yeah, something that was supposed to be gone in 5 years.
And we didn't even talk about how hip hop music is more than just music, like the culture influence things. I mean, we touched on it a little bit with all the clothing and stuff, but like movies.
Yeah, movies, TV shows.
Yeah.
Like I said in the intro of the first episode, it dictates the way we live.
Right.
Like the way we speak, the words we use, the phrases we use is all rooted in hip hop. And that's with everything. The way we dress, our hairstyles, our clothes, it's all hip hop. Mm-hmm. I used to think KRS-One was a madman 30 years ago when he was running around talking about I am hip hop. I remember him saying that at some point the president will have a KRS-One CD in his house. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, nigga, you crazy. I'm sure Barack Obama was listening to
I'm sure.
Love's Gonna Get You in the White House.
And you know what's crazy is Biggie said this back in like 96 or something. Who thought that hip hop would take it this far? It's
no,
like
that was 94.
94. And it's like when he said that, that wasn't even close to where it is now.
Yeah.
You're like, this far? This ain't even far. This is
No.
like a third of the way there.
That was the tip of the iceberg because we are coming up on 30 years past that statement. And there's no sign of it slowing down anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for it because I can't wait to go see Jay-Z performing when I'm 70. I want to see him perform. I Just Want to Love You. At Caesar's Palace when I'm 75. You can just roll him out in the wheelchair and let him sit on a stool and perform Takeover.
The acoustic version.
Yeah. I don't want the acoustic version. I want the same thing.
Okay.
I want the Kanye produced version of Takeover with his gray wig on and a cane. And Blue Ivy got to help him come out on stage.
Yeah, right. Blue Ivy's kid.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely changed my view of what being old means in general. Like when I was young, being like 40 something, whatever, that felt so old.
That's because, and I'm going to say this is because of hip hop too.
Yeah. Because look at
a 40-year-old today is not as old as a 40-year-old in 1980. Mm-hmm. Because, for instance, Sherman Hemsley that played George Jefferson. Mm-hmm. You saw how he looked, right?
Right.
He was like 37.
That's crazy.
When he was playing George Jefferson.
That's no way. I thought he was like in
people
his 50s.
In the 70s and 80s at the age that we are now looked a lot older than they actually were.
Yeah, like, okay, you know how every time Method Man does something, he ends up trending on Twitter because everyone's thirsting over him.
Yes.
And I have to be like, girl, I've been looking at Method Man since 93. You're new to this game, right? But it's crazy because, like, even, like, our favorite rappers and stuff, they all, like, basically look the same, but with some gray.
Right.
And so, like, did the music keep us young?
I think hip hop is the fountain of youth because, like I said, if you look at a 40-year-old in 1982 and a 40-year-old today, they are not the same person at all.
Definitely not.
Because I'm just thinking back now and I'm doing the math in my head of when my grandmother was in her 50s, how she looked versus how my mom looked at the same age.
And how you look, you're pushing 50.
Yeah, and how I look versus other people at the same age.
See, me just saying you're pushing 50, I had to, like, in my head, and I was like, wait, are you?
Yes.
Like, yeah, you just turned 48, old man.
Exactly. So I say just the music itself is keeping us young. Mm-hmm. And yeah, hip hop is the fountain of youth, and I'm going to stick to that.
All right. I think that's a good place to end it.
Hip hop is the fountain of youth.
Oh, there was so much more I wanted to say, but you know what? We committed to one episode, which turned into 2 episodes. I think we're just going to, don't be mad at us for not, oh, y'all didn't talk about this, y'all didn't talk about that. Maybe we'll have to have a new podcast to just talk about this, but I think that's a good place.
Yeah, the only way to accurately talk about 50 years of hip hop is to do
a deep
podcast only on that.
Yeah.
Like you can't do this in 2 hours.
Right. Well, maybe
it can't be done.
Maybe we'll have to do another one and we can explore like 1 year at a time.
Right. Right.
Yep. All right.
So on that note, we're going to wrap everything up here because it's getting hot and I want to turn this AC back on. But thank you for listening to They Reminisce Over You. We do this every 2 weeks, so you can, well, we probably won't have one 2 weeks after this one because we're going to be going to some concerts and doing some traveling. So
we'll see.
The summertime's kind of hit and miss for us, but in the fall, we'll be back on a consistent every 2 week schedule.
I think this one isn't this one going to be out in September? I don't know.
Yeah, this one will be out in September, but I can't guarantee there will be one
September.
2 weeks after this.
We'll see. Okay, yeah, just make sure you subscribe.
Yeah, make sure you stay subscribed. Mm-hmm. Follow us on all the social medias. We're at Troy Podcast everywhere. So even if you're bringing MySpace back, we probably have a Troy Podcast page there as well.
Wasn't Solange trying to bring MySpace back?
No, that was Black Planet.
Oh.
Yeah, we do have a Black Planet page. I haven't been on it in 3 years since I created it, but it exists. So at Troy Podcast everywhere. You can sign up for our newsletter. It comes out once a month. That's at troypodcast.com/newsletter.
Get something fun in your email for once.
Yes, and it doesn't pop up every day. It's only once a month, so you can go ahead and handle that. You can afford it too because it's free. If you want to buy some merch, you can do that as well. Go to teethang.com. Nothing But a Teethang is our store. That's teethang.com. Get a t-shirt, get a hat, get a backpack, mug, all sorts of shit. Okay, so you can't get a backpack.
I could add one.
But you can get other stuff. Go check it out. Buy your mama something for her birthday. Check out our playlists as well. We have playlists for all of our episodes. Well, most of our episodes, and we'll have one for this one as well. So make sure to check that out.
It's probably going to be 6 hours long.
I'm looking at like 12 hours on it.
You could play it for the week.
Yes, you can play it for your entire work week. That's what I'm trying to do for you. Make sure to check out those playlists as well. We'll link to some of the interviews and documentaries that we watched that talk about the 50 years of hip hop. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting? I'm sure there is, but
I don't know. We can put it in the footnotes.
Yeah, it'll be in the footnotes. Go to the website, hit us up on social media, buy some merch, leave a review, rate us 5 stars, and yeah,
tell
that's
a friend
it.
to tell a friend.
Tell a friend to tell a friend, and come back and listen in a couple weeks. All right, we out.